Welcome to the King's Report for Saturday, May 14th, 2022. Today is the 13th year of Chungi, the fourth month, 14th day in the heavenly calendar. And my name is Richard Panzer, standing in for Second King of Cheongguk. And I'd like to give a big shout out to Second King and Queen who are traveling around Korea. I'll be showing you some photos from their trip. But let's start out with our scripture reading. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, and let's make this full screen. Okay. Here we go. And this from Nehemiah chapter 4, 15 through 17. When our enemies heard that it was known to us and that God had frustrated their plan, we all returned to the wall, each to his own work. From that day on, half of my servants worked on construction, and half held the spears, shields, bows, and coats of mail. And the leaders stood behind the whole house of Judah, who were building on the wall. Those who carried burdens were loaded in such a way that each labored on the work with one hand and held his weapon with the other. And we can see that there are enemies, there are always people who hate the work of God, basically, who are jealous, who look at it from a purely political point of view, and could care less that God's purpose may be involved, and or at least respecting the freedom of people who want to worship God. There are always people who see the practice of faith in God and in our time Christianity as a threat to their power and position. And I actually got an email actually early this morning from somebody who was objecting to a statement in my weekly email that leftists hate God. And so I was really thinking about this because I suppose there are leftists who go to church and who may, Pope Francis, okay. Apparently he's a person who believes in God. You would expect that he did, but look at the policies that leftists support. Okay, leftists were in full support of the lockdowns of churches, the lockdown, people locked down in their homes for in many states 1 or 2 years. They were in full support of children being locked in their homes. So they really are and very, very, very strongly disapprove to people going to church to worship together. Of course, people could go to Walmart or Target to buy things, and hundreds of people are in that store. Or people could go to the liquor store or to the adult stores to buy pornography or sex toys. They were apparently not against those things, but they were very much against people gathering to worship and to pray. And so I do see that, and the leftists were in full support apparently of governors in New York State and New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Michigan, who sent COVID-19 infected elderly people into the nursing homes, where thousands of those nursing home residents quickly died. So if you believe that we are made in the image of God, and that there seems to be a callous indifference to the suffering of people who are made in the image of God. And then when you look at the fact that leftists are in full support of a constitutional right to abortion up until the moment of birth, in some cases in support of murdering children, babies after birth, then I would say that leftists really do, you know, in America, we believed that particularly since the Protestant Revolution, the Reformation rather, that God was experienced through individuals. When we experience God, when we read the Word of God and we pray and we make effort to relate to God, God works directly with human beings. And then human beings express their desire for government, you know, through their representation and through voting and so on. So, and in contrast to that, leftists believe that the absolute spirit in the Hegelian viewpoint works through the state. Okay, that's why they worship the state, all right? So, and Marxism is just one variant of leftist thinking, right? But they all believe that the state is the all-knowing and highly evolved leader of human evolution. So I would argue that they do worship government, they do worship the state and not God. And I do believe that for many of them, there is a hatred of God, and they seek to use government to limit the influence of religion, which they see as old-fashioned and superstitious and reactionary, and opposing their wonderful plans for human enlightenment, which unfortunately in our current time actually involves reducing the world population by about like 80 or 85%. Okay, there are many people in the World Economic Forum who are actually working through corporate socialism, which is even more powerful than many governments, and kind of using the power of their financial power to force governments to and other companies to support climate change religion, basically. And the end game of that is the view that there are too many human beings on the face of the earth. Human beings are seen like a type of virus that needs to be eradicated, and they do not have respect. And so they're in full support of unlimited rights to abortion. And we even see the food shortages that are starting to pop up all over the world, and we even see the baby formula shortages as well. I believe there are people who are very happy about this and who are actually, in some cases, scheming to make these things happen. And I do believe that there is a hatred of God drive. I mean, it certainly drove Karl Marx, for sure. I mean, it's very explicit in his writings. And then when you see when the Bolsheviks took over Russia, or Mao Zedong took over China, the first things they did was mass murder the Orthodox priests by the tens of thousands, in the hundreds of thousands, and burning tens of thousands of churches. And the same type of thing in communist China. And modern leftists, they may not literally be murdering, pastors and priests and religious leaders, or burning down churches, but they seem to be really happy to shut them down. And they certainly view churches that believe in the beginning of human beings from conception. They certainly are 100% opposed to that belief, right? And when you see hundreds of people crowding in front of the homes of Supreme Court justices and shouting and saying all kinds of vile curses and trying to bully and intimidate those Supreme Court justices, they certainly don't respect, our God-given freedoms. And they certainly do not respect the separation of powers. And they want to bully those Supreme Court justices into retracting their apparent decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which would actually not end abortion in America. It would just return the decision back to each state. So the reality probably is that in California, Oregon, Washington State, and New York State, and much of the Northeast, you'll be able to kill your baby probably up until the moment of birth. So if that's what you really want to do, if you go to those states, it will still be legal to do so. But in many, many other states, there will be limitations on the legality of ending preborn life, basically. But at least the American people will have their say, instead of having a Supreme Court, as they did in 1973, kind of impose their so-called enlightened view on the rest of us. And I think that, look, the people may not always be right, but at least they in our system of government, they have the right to elect their representatives. Now, of course, we have election fraud, and that election fraud is a serious threat to our republic. And we actually had a signing ceremony on Wednesday at the state capitol in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and more than 70 groups were represented, and at least 40 people were there to sign on behalf of those 70 groups. And I hope that this will have some impact on the legislators in Harrisburg, who have done virtually nothing to end election fraud. And I unfortunately believe that there are several Republicans who need to be retired. If you're not willing to stand up, look, you could say that, Governor Wolf will veto it, and that is very likely true. But we still expect you to, and you have the power of the budget, okay? You have the power of the budget to determine what gets funded. And the Secretary of State, they've been opposing audits of the state directory of voters. They've been illegally opposing audits of the voter lists, and even PennDOT, with in charge of the driver's licenses, they also refuse to cooperate with the audit of registered, when people register for their driver's license, in many cases they're automatically registered to vote, even if they're not legal citizens. So that's probably why they refuse to have an audit of of their, of their directory as well. There's a lot of corruption going on in Pennsylvania, and if we cannot solve this problem, then we're no longer a free republic. But yes, I do believe that leftists hate God. Whether they, I think if you look at the policies that they support, they worship the state, not God. And that's my opinion. Okay, let's keep going now. Let's go to Father's words from 1977. Heroes are born only during emergency and crisis. During the most adverse conditions, we can prove ourselves to be sacrificial and truly unselfish. We have only the one limited period when we are living here on earth to demonstrate that spirit. So actually, it's actually the times where our freedoms are threatened, when the rise of totalitarian evil is increasing. That's actually an opportunity for us to challenge ourselves and to see what we're made of. So in a sense, we can be grateful to God. We can discover the love and power of God, as Father showed in his own life, the most when our freedoms are the most at risk. So we who are living in the United States and in the West, I guess you could say, unfortunately or fortunately, we're getting a chance to challenge our own limitations. And I truly believe that without God's help and guidance, there's no way that we can overcome this. But I believe with God, there is a way for us to defeat. We have a totalitarian takeover of the United States of America. And we just did an interview with Trevor Loudon, which we broadcast on Tuesday. And a lot of what's happening in the United States is happening with the funding and direction of communist China and other bad actors. Okay, I'll just put it that way. But we have to stand up. Anyway, I could say more, but I think you get my point. Okay, I'd like to show you some photos from Korea. This is Hyunjin speaking at a rally in Yosu. And also here's King Timothy speaking also at that rally as well. And here's the Hyunjin and Yeonim sending best wishes to the 1 year birthday of Hyunam. So they look pretty happy. So we really love our second king queen, and we wish them the best. Okay, all right, let's get into the news. All right, here we go. Okay, I'd like to read from, let me show a video. I think I'll show you a video. This is from a COVID pitch meeting. Let's take a look.
Good news. Oh, yeah? Yeah, we've rolled back the ban on gain-of-function research. Really? So now it's legal for us to modify viruses and make them more deadly and transmissible to humans. Why would you want to do that? Well, it's important that we be prepared in case something like that happened in the future. In case somebody modifies a deadly virus to be more infectious and able to transmit to humans. Oh, can you imagine? Yeah, sounds dangerous. No, it's fine. We're doing it at a level 4 weapons research lab in Wuhan, China. Very secure. Okay, good. Terrible news. Oh no, there's been an outbreak of a mysterious new respiratory virus in Wuhan, China. Wuhan, China, like where the research lab is? Yeah, exactly, like right where the lab is. So do you think it could have come from the lab? But no, absolutely not. No. I'd see how you could make that mistake, but no, no, no. The virus, the deadly virus with the artificial furin cleavage sites that make it able to infect humans, that came from the farmer's market down the road from the dangerous bioweapons lab. And you expect us to believe that? I'll ban you from the internet if you don't. Oh, God. No need to worry. The global medical establishment's always preparing for these types of things. In fact, like 2 months ago, they held a course called Event 201, where they basically predicted exactly what would happen, right down to the type of virus and where it came from. So they're like totally on top of this. Actually, they're going to do nothing for months and let it spread all over the world. But it started in China, right? Like, can't we at least halt travel with them? I didn't realize you were a racist. What? I didn't realize you had some deep, seething hatred of Asian people. And in fact, I think it's despicable. Whoa, I'm talking about the virus. Oh, the virus? It's here now. Yeah, I bet. Yeah, it came on a plane from China. There's nothing we could do. Well, what do we know about the virus so far? Not a lot, but we're going to go ahead and assume that it's the deadliest thing in the world and everybody's scared. We're all scared. You didn't seem very worried about it when it was in China. Well, no, I was calling you a racist then. That's what was important. But now we're very scared of the virus. Everybody's scared. You're scared. Well, does it affect certain ages or populations or groups, anything like that? Yeah, actually, it's way deadlier to the elderly and the sick. Okay, well, why don't we start by protecting them? No, we're actually going to send COVID-infected patients into nursing homes instead. Geez, well, okay, well, what are you doing to stop the spread? UV lights, vitamin C, vitamin D, should I wear a mask? We know that masks don't really stop you from getting this type of infection. The science is pretty much settled on this. Masks don't work. Okay, so no mask. Actually, they're mandatory. And also, we're shutting down everything. Wait, what? Yeah, it's called lockdown. I'm basically declaring martial law and saying that you can't leave your house or gather in large groups. How do you think you're going to get people to go along with this? Well, it's only for 2 weeks. It's going to last forever, isn't it? Maybe. And you're shutting everything down? Everything? Every restaurant, every store? Yep, absolutely everything. Everything's shut down. We're all in this together. So like even like Walmart and Target? No, they can stay open. Okay, well, what about like McDonald's or Taco Bell? Obviously, McDonald's and Taco Bell can stay open. Okay, so the big chain stores can stay open, but if a small business tries to stay open, we will send a tank and point a rifle in their face and maybe send them to jail. But it's only for 2 weeks or years or whatever. I mean, won't that crash the economy? Oh yeah, 100% for sure. Okay, but this stops the virus. It does not, no. Okay, other than masks that don't work and lockdowns that don't work, is there anything else you suggest that we do? Oh, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm imposing plastic barriers and social distancing as well. Okay, so those work. No, of course not. It's ridiculous. Just think about it. But we do encourage contact tracing, where you download our app to your phone and then use it to log everywhere you go and everything you do and everyone you interact with. It sounds like a precursor to vaccine passport. No way, that's crazy. Hey, by the way, we sent a investigative team to figure out the origins of the virus. Oh, so you're investigating the lab? No. Okay, well, who are you sending to investigate? The guy who runs the lab. Yeah, this sounds suspicious. It's not. I mean, the whole thing sounds sketchy. Nothing you're saying really makes any sense. And it seems like the same people imposing the masks and lockdowns are the same people that are benefiting from it. And it seems like it's going to have way worse long-term effects than the virus itself. I mean, all of this seems arbitrary and expensive. Well, it's only until we get the vaccine. And actually, it's going to be a wonderful, revolutionary new mRNA vaccine. So, thank God we have Bill Gates helping us with this. Bill Gates, isn't he the one who thinks the most pressing issue the Earth faces is overpopulation, and that the best way to reduce population is through vaccines? Didn't he give a TED talk to that effect? No, shut up. He loves you.
Okay, there we have it. There we have our enlightened leaders who, of course, have no conflicts of interest, and they always tell the truth, and they never lie to us. So don't worry about anything. Don't worry about anything. Everything's going to be okay. Okay. I'm sorry, I told a lie. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'd like to read an article from the National Review. From happy kid to oppressed victim, Virginia mom reveals how a school anti-racism program transformed her son. Okay, here we go. Make it a little bit bigger, okay. When Melissa Riley looks at her 13-year-old son, she sees a talented artist, a funny kid who likes playing pranks, a gamer who spends a lot of time playing Fortnite with his friends. She sees a young man who's excited about playing football and maybe taking some architecture and engineering courses when he starts high school next fall. But that is not what the teachers and leaders of her son's Virginia middle school see, she said. When they look at her son, she believes they see one thing first and foremost: a Black kid. Growing up in the Charlottesville area, Riley said her son never really saw himself as different from the other kids in school. Sure, his skin tone was a little darker. His dad is Black and Riley is white and Native American, but Riley never thought it was appropriate to box him in with stifling racial classifications. He looks Hawaiian, she said of her son. He's beautiful. But she said that her son's views on race and his conception of his own complex identity have been tossed in a blender and mixed up ever since the Albemarle School District adopted an anti-racism policy with an explicit goal of eliminating all forms of racism from the local schools. Riley said that a new anti-racist curriculum launched at Henley Middle School last spring is itself racist because it indoctrinates students and teachers in a racial essentialist worldview that emphasizes racial conflict and treats students differently based on their skin color. She said the school had changed her son in ways that she doesn't approve of, filling his head with racial awareness lessons that emphasize oppression and privilege. Her son now sees himself as different from his mostly white classmates, as a young Black man who will have more struggles in life because of his race and because of the systemic racism that is endemic in American life. He's changing, Riley said of her son. If things don't go his way or if things seem unfair, he will now claim it's racism. He never did that before. He now identifies as a Black man because that's how the school told him he looks and who he is. Riley and her son are among the plaintiffs in a lawsuit filed against the Albemarle County School Board in December by the Alliance Defending Freedom, a nonprofit conservative legal firm. The ADF lawyers allege the district's anti-racism policy and curriculum violate the Virginia Constitution's equal protection and free speech clauses and violate parental rights. Their lawsuit was dismissed last month by a circuit court judge who seemed to find the district's policy unobjectionable and declared that there's nothing inherently evil or wrong about it. The ADF lawyers have vowed to appeal the ruling. Okay, all right, so they're appealing it. And okay, yeah, okay, so the Albemarle County School Board adopted its anti-racism program in 2019. And they implemented a pilot program at the middle school. Okay, and that's when Riley learned about the program. At its most mundane, the school offered a series of anti-bias lessons and feel-good teachings about positivity and inclusivity. Last summer, for example, Henley Middle School students painted murals in the school hallways with messages such as, "We are equal," "Happy mind, happy life," that life is fragile like paper. But parents who dug deeper into the curriculum found reasons to be concerned. Okay, here we go. The curriculum taught middle schoolers that racism is the marginalization and or oppression of people of color based on a socially constructed hierarchy that privileges white people. The students were urged to be anti-racist, and that by not making anti-racist choices, they were unconsciously upholding aspects of white supremacy, white dominant culture, and unequal institutions in society. Teachers were trained to identify white privilege and understand that the idea of meritocracy is a myth. They learned about communication as a racialized tool and were taught that white talk is verbal, impersonal, intellectual, task-oriented, whereas color commentary is nonverbal, personal, emotional, and process-oriented. Lessons that critics say perpetuate gross racial stereotypes. Yeah, those are definitely stereotypes. And what's wrong with being task-oriented? I think sometimes you need to focus on completing a task. Anyway, those are really stereotypes. Okay, some parents spoke up at the meetings and complained, but then the school board, anyway, the school board and superintendent pushed back. They denying that critical race theory is part of their curriculum, but then they acknowledged that the district offers a professional development program on culturally responsive teaching. And then, yeah, so then they actually have a program that, an anti-racism program. Okay, yeah, so, okay, anyway, okay. Riley said that red flags went up when she first learned about the Albemarle School District's anti-racism policy and a pilot program. She feared that a hyper-focused attention on race and racial differences would result in her son being singled out in a mostly white school. She talked to school leaders and told them she didn't think it was appropriate. They said, well, your son would be a great voice for all Black students. We'd love to have him speak for that community. Riley recalled, he was 12. I did not think that was his responsibility. Also, he has not had a different experience from that of these other children. Riley said she was told that if her son was uncomfortable during discussions on race, he would be offered a safe space. I told him, no, that is segregation. Okay, anyway. Okay, and then she spoke to a coach who's Black, who told her that the anti-racism policy instruction were necessary because parents are not teaching their children what they need to know about race. He said that parents aren't parenting anymore and they need to take over, meaning the teachers need to take over. I told him that I chose to be a parent and that's my job and I will not let them be the parent. They are there to teach my child academics and I will take care of everything else. Yeah, so you can see here, this is the leftist view that, you, the parents, you have old fashioned ideas. Your consciousness is not highly raised to the reality of systemic racism. Therefore, we, the enlightened teachers, we have to teach your kids about this. And you can go F yourselves, parents. We're gonna hide what we're teaching. We're gonna tell our kids not to let you know what is being discussed in our classrooms, okay? You have teachers telling the kids to lie and to hide what they're learning in the classroom. And that is why I believe leftists do not respect freedom of religion or freedom of belief, and why I believe they have the mind of totalitarians, which ultimately I believe is linked to a rejection of God. Okay, because the founders of our country said we worship no king except King Jesus. Okay, meaning we do not believe that you should have absolute power over our lives. We don't agree with that. That's why we fought a revolution. Okay, there we go. And let me share another. Okay, I think you can see this. Okay. All right, let me share the screen again. Here we go. Biden moves to give WHO healthcare sovereignty over America. Proposal empowers chief of UN agency to declare emergency in the United States. The Brandon administration has proposed amendments to the World Health Organization regulations that would give the UN agency's Director General unilateral authority to declare a health emergency in the United States. The international health regulations amendments will be subject to votes at the upcoming meeting of the WHO's governing legislative body, the World Health Assembly, May 22nd through 28th in Geneva. Okay, all right, that's what they're planning to do. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, we should all feel very reassured that the government really cares about us and wants us to be safe from bad ideas, and we don't know what's good enough for ourselves, and therefore even the United States does not know what's truly good for itself. So we need to transfer authority to this benevolent international agency. Okay, all right, let's go to something a little bit more positive. Okay, I have a video from John Stossel about free market roads. Let's see what that's about.
I can hear the government planners now. No plan, spontaneous order? I can hear the government planners now. No plan, spontaneous order? Maybe that's okay for things like ice skating, but when it comes to important projects like building roads, you obviously need government central planning.
Have a lovely day.
But you don't. Why are these British toll booth workers cheerful?
Thank you very much.
Because they work for a man who built a private road.
It's amazing, and kudos to him, because not many people have an idea and actually follow it through.
Heavy rains had damaged the local highway. The government promised it would repair the road quickly, but
after 3 weeks, they said, that's going to be 3 months. After 3 months, they said it's going to be a year. My wife said, you should put down some hardcore, make it a bit more safe, and charge a toll fee. And I said, well, I think I could build this road.
But you're not a road builder.
I'm not.
But at the local pub, he asked a farmer who owned land near the damaged highway, can I build a road on your land?
We shook hands. He said, build it, use my land. If there's any profit at the end of it, we'll split it. We had another pint of beer, and then I went home and I woke up in the morning and thought, how the hell do you build a road?
And yet, Mike was able to build this private road in just 12 days. To get the money for it, he and his wife went to a bank.
We gave a letter to say we would sell our house.
And with their house on the line, Mike built this road. Private road just means privately built. Anyone who pays $3 can use it, and thousands do.
Do you like it?
Yeah, it does the job, doesn't it?
Absolutely brilliant. I hope the bloke makes £1 million out of it.
It saved us so much time and money.
We've got 2 toll operators on 24 hours a day.
British toll roads like this happen to be how we got the word turnpike.
They would have 2 guards either end of the toll road, and they would have a pike. Once they paid their toll fee, they would then turn the pike and let the people through.
Mike's road has no gate, but few drivers cheat.
Probably 3 people have actually driven through and not paid because everyone is so happy.
If only the council could have thought of it themselves.
The government council's leader says they did think about it, but
as a council, we couldn't have put in a temporary toll road because we are bound as a council to make anything that we build conform to highway standards.
His government standards will raise the cost of fixing the road to about $4 million. But Mike built his road for less than $300,000. Where does their money go?
They're caught within all this bureaucracy and the red tape. They've got to do this, they've got to do that.
Spontaneity is great, but we can't just do what you want.
The bureaucrats almost killed off Mike's road with endless objections.
Objections to signage, there's objections to drainage. We've had to spend £5,000 to get a guy to drill a hole and tell us that the road is not impacting on what's gone on down below. In the 11th hour, we've come up with the fact that we didn't do any archaeological investigations before we built this road.
Archaeological dig to look for old kings and queens, or what?
It's just another objection. I've got a file full of paper, and that's only the little bit that I printed out. I mean, it's just taken thousands of pounds from consultants' fees to prepare all this paperwork.
And yet you still built the road for a tenth what the government was going to pay.
Well, less than.
Once Mike started giving interviews, the government opened its road more quickly.
Please.
So Mike's out of the road business. He managed to break even, and he learned something that everyone should know.
Around the world, we've just gone too far in regulation, just too far.
Okay, there you have it. Somebody who took, actually ended up building his own road. That's amazing. That is really amazing. So at less than 1/10 the cost. All right. Makes you think a little bit, doesn't it? All right. Okay, let me see here if we have time to. Yeah. Actually, many of us are engaged in arguments, debates with people. And have you ever been in an argument and then you finish the argument and then 10 minutes later you say, "Oh, I wish I had said this or that," and you really realize that you didn't do a very good job of debating. Well, I found a video that gives you pointers about effective debating, which I think is a pretty useful skill that we do need to develop. So let me share you a few minutes of this training video.
Ben Shapiro is one of the most famous and skilled political debaters out there. And even if you're not into politics, his arguments are fun to watch. In this video, I want to explore why Ben is so talented in debates. Specifically, I'm going to give you 7 techniques that you can use no matter what side of an argument you represent, even if you're on the wrong side. 3 caveats before we begin. First, I am not saying that Ben is right or wrong on any of his points. What I'm going to discuss are some of the rhetorical devices he employs that can be persuasive even if they aren't always logically foolproof. No matter where you fall on these issues, there's a lot to be learned from Ben's style of debate. Second, you probably don't want to focus on debating in your interpersonal relationships because the goal of debate is quite different than the goal of most relationships.
Or you're debating somebody on a stage, in which case your goal is basically to humiliate that person as badly as possible.
And third, Ben obviously does quite a bit of research, which is really tough to combat without figures of your own.
If you're richer, you tend to be married longer on average. People who are poorer tend to get divorced more.
Where did you get that statistical?
The Census Bureau.
Now, research is necessary, but I'm more interested in the tactical side of the debate rather than the prep, so I won't go any further into it. Let's begin then with Ben's defensive debate tactics, starting with catching non-arguments. And that's because not everything that sounds persuasive actually constitutes a valid argument. For instance, when you hear that 9 out of 10 fill-in-the-blanks believe something, that doesn't necessarily prove a point. That is an argument from authority. And though it might be compelling, more evidence is required to be deemed conclusive. So when people lean on authority in arguments, Ben knows to call them out on it, like in this example.
We urge you to listen to the American public and to the law enforcement community in support of ban on the further manufacture of these weapons. That was Ronald Reagan.
Okay, so I can disagree with Ronald Reagan.
You keep one of the great right-wing presidents of modern times agreed with me.
So
another common debate tactic that maybe isn't done on purpose and doesn't constitute a valid argument is getting emotional, particularly when the other person gets upset or offended. Now, when Piers Morgan did that, Ben wisely didn't engage him because simply being offended doesn't prove anything.
He's mere standing on the graves of the children that died there. How dare you?
I've seen you do it repeatedly, Piers.
Like I say, how dare you?
I mean, you can keep saying that, but you've done it repeatedly. What you do, and I've seen you do it on the program.
The late Christopher Hitchens put the same idea rather bluntly.
If someone tells me that I've hurt their feelings, I say, well, still waiting to hear what your point is.
Right.
Now, you don't necessarily need to be that abrupt, but pointing out that a point needs something beyond simple emotion in order to make it valid can make other debaters flustered. And from there, you can segue into the third defensive tactic that we're covering in this video, which is pushing for specifics. People often hold very broad opinions very strongly without necessarily being able to articulate what they mean concretely. And of course, this happens on all sides of the political spectrum. So when Ben is grappling with a very broad spanning charge, he takes the necessary first step of pushing that other person to provide specific examples.
You know what the Republican beliefs are. I mean, you're a young guy, but you certainly remember 2 years back when beliefs were completely the opposite of what they are now.
Well, which
they were
ones?
for
Which ones?
free trade.
This is absolutely critical. Do not get wrapped up in defending generalized statements, even if you don't like them, because if any sort of blanket label is asserted against your position, or it's large institutions that are being branded one way or another, if you try to defend against that single phrase, you are already buying into an argument you don't understand, and that would be absurd. So instead, push the other person to relate exactly what they mean specifically, like in this example.
We've been talking about. When you say institutional racism, it's too broad. You at least have to name me the institution. Which one is the racist one? Which institution is racist? Tell me which, so we can fight it seriously. So we can fight it together. Just, I want to be on your side. I do. I want to fight racists. I think I think racism is. I think racist behavior is evil. I want to fight it with you, but I can't fight it if you're not showing me what it is.
Similarly, and lastly, on the defensive side, Ben knows his arguments inside and out, so he doesn't get sucked into defending points that his argument doesn't require. For instance, in this next clip, Ben is talking about how Trump will say outrageous things knowing that it sets the media ablaze. And his point is that Trump knows what he's doing, and he does it on purpose in order to control the news cycle. Now, when Don Lemon responds saying that Trump shouldn't be doing that, Ben doesn't bother defending the morality of his actions. He's only talking about the purpose of them.
Says some things that are outrageous, like people in the media aren't patriotic, knowing that people in the media are immediately going to turn it up to 12 on the Richter scale.
But Ben, don't you think he should be
he's going to
truthful
say
in his
that-
comments, even if he's funny, and if you give
Yes,
him
of
that,
course.
shouldn't he be truthful? And he wasn't.
Of course, and I think that this is where the media. Here's my advice to people in the media.
Now, recognizing that you can and should agree at points with the person that you're debating seems obvious, but it can be especially hard to do when people insult you. A general rule of thumb is that if the other person winds up attacking you, you are actually winning the debate. So Ben usually doesn't get sucked into defending his own honor, and he shows a great example of that here.
Called it a hit piece. And in it, writer Jane Coaston says you have hollow bravery, calls your campus speeches shadow boxing. And if you wanted to be genuinely brave, you challenge, quote, some of the wrong-headed ideas held by your right-wing fans. How do you respond to that?
Number one, I've never really attributed bravery to myself. I don't think that it's brave to walk on a campus and talk to kids. I think it's brave to be a member of the military. I think it's brave to be a cop. I think it's brave to be a firefighter. I don't think it's brave for me to walk with a security team at my side onto a stage. If I thought that I was going to get shot and murdered, then I probably wouldn't do it. So I don't consider myself part of that group anyway.
Ben wisely doesn't bother defending his own bravery and instead sticks to the points that he knows are strongest to his argument. And that takes us to Ben's offensive strategies. One of the big ways that I see him stump his opponents is through the use of snuck premises. Essentially, you introduce the exact point of contention as a given, and that's through the clever use of language. Now, this isn't to pick on Ben because we all do this from time to time. So first off, see if you can find the snuck premise in this next case.
From Planned Parenthood, as you may have noticed, I'm mostly against abortion. If you want to go to Planned Parenthood and get a contraceptive, go for it. I don't care. I do care when you start killing babies. This is a problem for me.
Again, a snuck premise introduces a contended point as a given. So what counts as a snuck premise shifts with each position of each person involved in a debate. Now, in the context of the abortion debate, pro-choice versus pro-life, what is the snuck premise that Ben just said? Here it would be the words kill babies. This entire debate hinges on the personhood of the baby/fetus, and using the word baby implies personhood. So with that word, Ben is able to sneak in a premise that most of his opponents would probably disagree with, but he does it in a way that they don't notice, so they are stuck coming to the same conclusion that he does. Here's another example, this time in a debate over the morality of socialism, communism, and other economic models.
Income inequality in the United States is also quite high, right? There are people who are Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, and then there's the local checker at your grocery store. But if the local checker at your grocery store is getting richer, then it seems to me they have nothing particularly to complain about in how the economy is operating. They don't have a right to Jeff Bezos's money. They don't have a right to Bill Gates's money any more than Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos has a right to their money.
What is the snug premise in this case? It would be the idea that it is their money. A socialist or a communist might see the money that an owner of the means of production has, aka another rich person, as being stolen. So it wouldn't be their money in the minds of a socialist or a communist. But when Ben assumes the idea that it is their money, he makes a point that, again, his opponents might find disagreeable, but they won't really know where to poke the hole because they adopted his premise as soon as he said it. Now, in my experience, most debates are won or lost on snug premises. In concealing the steps we take to arrive at our conclusions, we can get there without the other person knowing exactly how they disagree with us, but still being stuck. So if you want to win cheaply without having your ideas challenged, this is an excellent tactic. That is how you can win a debate, even if you're wrong. But to the degree that you can catch yourself, you're usually better off avoiding this. And it's usually more insightful and better for the relationship to bolster the opposition side, as we discussed in our video on Jordan Peterson, which I will link to below. Again, not to pick on Ben, just pointing this out as an example. I'm going to leave this for now and move to another effective rhetorical tool that I see from Ben. It's moving from the abstract to the concrete, and it looks like this.
I think that focusing on poverty is a good thing to do. I think focusing on income inequality is not a good thing to do because there's no correlation between income inequality and relative rates of poverty. Right? There's tremendous income inequality in a lot of places on planet Earth. In fact, in all places on planet Earth. You go to Sudan, there's going to be a rich warlord there, and then there are going to be a bunch of people living on $6 a year.
This works because the specific example seems to prove the broader point that preceded it, even though a single example cannot prove a rule. It is useful shorthand for persuasion and explanation. I do this all the time with the examples that I give you in these videos. It's very...
Okay, you know, I do agree, but Ben Shapiro is a really, really good debater, and I'm sure that the fact that I guess he prepares and he studies these issues is a good place to start. Okay, we're kind of running out of time here, but I want to show you a video from the Babylon Bee, which, as I said before, I find to be very highly reliable source of information compared to CNN and other sources. They found a murderer who is undecided on whether he will follow new gun laws. So here's a murderer with a conscience. So let's see what he has to say. Here we go.
Hi. I am an illegal gun owner, what some would call a deranged murderous criminal. And yeah, I'm concerned about how these new laws are going to affect both my illegal gun ownership and my ability to brutally murder anyone that crosses me. Democrats, who I usually vote for because I want to get out of parole easy, are proposing a whole slew of gun control laws, which means in order to get my guns, I have to start breaking laws. I mean, even more than the laws that I already broke, because I'm a murderer. The background check thing sounds really concerning. I would definitely fail since I'm a well-known psychopath. I mean, you take one look into my background, you'll find that I killed Mikey, and Little T, and I killed the old man Humphreys while he was walking home from work. I killed the cashier at the Circle K. And I killed what's-her-face. Plus, there's the people I've injured, and the list of people I still want to murder. It's a long list, so no way I'm getting a gun. The background check turns up all of that. The only silver lining is this. I've never actually purchased a gun through a gun dealer. I just steal all of my murder weapons. In fact, sometimes I steal them from the people I murder. And so far, no one has proposed a background check on theft, so I think I'm good. But they also want to limit high-capacity magazines. So, let's just say, hypothetically, I got to drive by a crack house on 12th Street and shoot it up a little bit, to send them a message. But now, I got to reload after every 10 shots. See how irritating and annoying that would be? To be honest, I might just keep using a high-capacity magazine in spite of the law, because I'm not just out there trying to commit murder. I'm trying to commit multiple counts of murder. That's the difference between being good and being great. Honestly, I haven't been this concerned about a new law since they put those gun-free zone signs up around schools, because here's the thing. Sometimes the people I want to kill are near schools. It seems like these politicians don't even consider the adverse effect their policies will have on people's lives or on my ability to end their lives. The only policy that sounds kind of cool is the buyback program. If they offer a lot of money for AR-15s, that could be pretty worthwhile. I'll sell them the ones I got. Then use the money to buy more guns illegally on black market. Then I'll go right on murdering. Look, in the end, while I'm still a little frustrated that these gun laws will be a minor inconvenience for murderous psychopaths like myself, I am grateful that they ultimately won't do anything to stop me from killing. And hopefully, if there are a few less good guys with guns out there, that could even make my job easier.
Okay, there we have it. We have a murderer who has a conscience and is really struggling at whether he should follow the gun control laws. So amazing, amazing. Okay, I think we better finish up now. I have a video from Jordan Peterson. It's very interesting. You know, he is not professed to believe in God. He's not professed to really think that the Bible is therefore the word of God, but it's very interesting what he's saying about the Bible. So I'd like to play this for you.
The Bible is true in a very strange way. It's true in that it provides the basis for truth itself. And so it's like a meta truth. Without it, there couldn't even be the possibility of truth. And so maybe that's the most true thing. The most true thing isn't some truth per se, it's that which provides the precondition for all judgments of truth. I can't see any holes in that argument. And I can't see any holes in it from a scientific perspective either, because I think we do know well enough now as scientists that the problem of deriving ethical direction from the collection of facts is an intractable problem. There's too many facts. There's an infinite number of facts. They do not provide an unerring guide for action. They can't. There's too many of them. They have to be prioritized. And as soon as they are prioritized, well, then you're in the ethical domain. And then that begs the question, what's the valid ethical domain? And the postmodern answer is, well, there isn't one. It's all the expression of domination and power. And I think that's nonsense. I don't think that's a tenable solution. I think that we stumbled onto the proper answer in some sense in our religious enterprise, which is that we aim at what's highest or we don't. We aim at what's highest jointly or we're divided. We aim at what's highest and that gives meaning to all the things we do that are subordinate parts of that. We aim at what's highest and that's what collects us and gives us structure, all of that, you know, singly and jointly. And that's all what we've been trying to communicate all these centuries as we've been trying to communicate the whole religious corpus, generation after generation, and to sort this out and to straighten it out and to try to understand it. And I think that's where we're at now. Maybe a little bit more conscious of what this all means and maybe a little bit more capable of being more certain as people of the book that the faith we have in the textual corpus that we inhabit is, we just haven't done better than that. And we strive to flesh it out, we strive to understand it, but fundamentally, it seems to be true in that fundamental sense that I just described, which is not merely true, but the precondition for truth itself.
Okay. And as he read from Psalm 119, the entirety of your word is truth, and every one of your righteous judgments endures forever. And I think that this is a really important point that he's making. And the Second King has spoken about this many times, that if there is no God, if there is no absolute truth, then your opinion versus my opinion. It's just competing claims, and there's the postmodern view is that there is no absolute truth, and that if you claim there is, you're just trying to bolster your own position and ultimately for your own benefit. So there's just kind of a push for power, basically, and there's really, I mean, what reason would there be not to lie, for instance? Or if you're a scientist, to misrepresent your research. I don't know if you know this, but there are countless scientific studies that are full of falsified research. And when other people try to replicate the research, they find out that there are all kinds of mistakes, in some cases intentional mistakes or non-intentional. So even the idea that there is truth to be discovered is something that is an act of faith, right? And hopefully we would hope that scientists who, whether they believe in God or not, that at least they respect that there is truth to be discovered, and that they want to do so with integrity, right? So in fact, I would argue that if we're tempted to lie or to cheat or to take a shortcut or to, God forbid, kill somebody, outside of a war or something, I would argue that we are actually disbelieving in God, right? We're doing something that violates the word of God, the truth of God, the commandments of God. So we all need to take this very seriously. And it's not just a question of debating theology. It's really talking about the way that we live our lives. And so we really need to, the Bible talks about approaching God with fear and trembling, because we need to, and fearing God, it really is the beginning of wisdom, because we should fear to violate what God wishes, God's standard, right? And of course, true Father spoke about violating our own conscience, which he says is really guiding us to act unselfishly, basically, right? And guiding us to do something that's good for the whole, not just, for my own family or my own religion or group, etc. Okay, I think we've run out of time. So the Second King, we will have a recorded video from the Second King for Sunday's service tomorrow, and then we have a special guest, King's Report host, on Monday. Okay, have a great weekend and have a blessed day. Thank you for watching.